already drunkards, but maybe that's wrong. That's what they told me. I can't imagine that. But what happened is, if you look at the number, the time we left, it was 240 cases, Peter, and 11 deaths. That's what it has been. Now, you look at throughout the world, I mean, other countries have South Korea, Italy, and in particular China, have many. Now, I also hear the numbers are getting much better in those places, and I've heard the numbers are getting much better in China, but I hear the numbers are getting much better in Italy, et cetera, et cetera. But when I hear, so we have 240 cases, 11 deaths. Everything's too much, and it's true. I don't want 11 deaths. I don't want any deaths, right? But over the last long period of time, when people have the flu, you have an average of 36,000 people dying. I never heard those numbers. I would have been shocked. I would have said, does anybody die from the flu? I didn't know people died from the flu. 36,000 people died. 27,000 to 77,000, that's your flu. And again, you had a couple of years where it was over 100,000 people died from the flu. So I start to say, I wonder what's going on here. Now, if you look at the percentage from the flu is under 1%. But this could also be under 1% because many of the people that aren't that sick don't report. So they're not putting those people in there, and you're smiling when I said, who are you from, by the way?
I'm from CNN.
You are? I don't watch CNN, that's why I don't recognize you.
Nice to meet you.
I really don't. I don't watch it. I don't watch CNN because CNN is fake news. Go ahead.
Can you just address the economic piece, though? There's obviously a lot
of course it's an effect. I mean, it is an effect. Now, you know, if you know anything about me, I like when people happen to stay in the United States and spend their money in the United States, okay? So I think people are staying in the United States more. They're going to spend their money in the United States. So business is ended. It will end. People have to remain calm. I do think that if you look at the numbers, and you look at the numbers from other years on other things, and you look at these numbers, it'll be interesting to see what you find. And statistics will soon be coming out. But there was a big statistic today that it's way under 1%. They said 1/10 of 1% in one case, but nobody really knows. We'll be able to find out. The problem is the people that get better, that don't see a doctor, don't go to a hospital, those people get better. If they were in the numbers would look much better in terms of death rate.
Are you concerned there'll be some bankruptcies?
Oh, I think you'll have other things. The amazing thing, and look at the job numbers today. We had a tremendous job number today. We had a number that when you add last month's number, which was a correction of plus 80,000 jobs, wasn't it a 350,000 jobs number today? That was shocking. I was watching a particular network, and they said on the network, but they're pros, they said, wow, these are unbelievable numbers. They were shocked by the numbers. Over 350,000 when you add last month's correction. Peter?
So, Mr. President, all these organizations that are canceling conventions and trips and study abroad programs, and all the organizations and businesses that are canceling conventions and meetings and travel and so forth, even within the United States, are they overreacting or are they taking the right precautions?
I think it's fine if they want to do it. I don't think it's an overreaction, but I wouldn't be generally inclined to do it. I really wouldn't be. Now, it depends on what country you're talking about. If you're talking about if they're going to another country, or you're talking about within the United States?
Within the United States, a lot of places.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they have to feel comfortable. People have to feel comfortable to have a good time. If you look at, do I want to go to China? Do I want to go to certain parts of Italy? Do I want to go to South Korea right now? You know, that's a different decision. But you have some parts of the world and some parts, most parts of the country. Look, in this big, vast land of ours, this great country of ours, we have 240 cases. Most of those people are going to be fine. A vast majority are going to be fine. We've had 11 deaths, and they've been largely old people who were susceptible to what's happening. Now, that would be the case, I assume, with the regular flu, too. If somebody is old and in a weakened state or ill, they're susceptible to the common flu, too. You know, they were telling me just now that the common flu kills people and old people is sort of a target.
And also the very young.
And the young. Now, the interesting thing here, it's very interesting, the interesting thing here is that the young seem to be doing unbelievably well, actually better than they do with the flu. Young people and very young people are doing very well, which is another thing I guess they're trying to figure out.
And Mr. President, you're shaking a lot of hands today, taking a lot of close pictures. Are you protecting yourself at all?
Not at all.
How are you staying away from germs?
Not at all. You know, I'm a person that is never big on the handshaking deal. Throughout my life, they used to criticize me for it or laugh about it or have fun with it. But if you're a politician, like I walk in and the doctors have their hands up. Hello, sir. How you? If you don't shake hands, they're not going to like you too much, and I guess that's my business. I never thought I'd be a politician. I guess I'm a politician.
Really?
But the fact is, I feel very secure. I feel very secure.
Could anybody tell us what happened here last night and today that at one point canceled the trip and then put it back on? What happened here?
I was told that one person, maybe, that works someplace in the building, at I'm not even sure what level, but that one person may have had the virus. And therefore, they said, sir, because of the fact that one person may have had because it's a big building with a lot of great scientists, frankly, one person had the virus, that turned out to be a negative report. That turned out to be negative. And so they called me, but it was already canceled. But this morning I said, wait a minute, I'm going to Tennessee. We're going down to Florida, have a meeting on Monday, as you know. And so we're going to Florida. I'd love to stop at CDC. That was a big deal with Secret Service, but they're fantastic and they worked it out. So we stopped. But it was a report, and the person, it was a negative diagnosis.
Mr. President, that convention on Monday has been canceled because of coronavirus, where you were supposed to speak.
No, we had another big deal. There were two of them. And there was a thing that we recommended, because there's a lot of people, and we recommended that if they want, let them cancel that one. But there was another one in a similar area.
Have you considered not having campaign rallies? Like, you don't
No, I
have one
haven't.
scheduled in Michigan this coming week.
Well, I'll tell you what, I haven't had any problem filling them. I mean, we just had one in North Carolina, South Carolina, all over the place, and we have tens of thousands of people standing outside the arena. So
Isn't
we
it a
haven't
risk if there's that many people all close together?
It doesn't bother me at all, and it doesn't bother them at all.
What should be done about that cruise ship that's stopped?
Well, that's a big question. So I was just on the phone with Vice President, and they're trying to make a decision. I mean, frankly, if it were up to me, I would be inclined to say, leave everybody on the ship for a period of time, and you use the ship as your base. But a lot of people would rather do it a different way. They'd rather quarantine people in the land. Now, when they do that, our numbers are going to go up. Okay, our numbers are going to go up. The 240 is going to go up. And I assume that perhaps, it's a very big ship with thousands of people on it, including the sailors and the crew. You're talking about a massive number of people. That is a big ship. If it were up to me, I would do it that way. A lot of people think we should do it the other way. They're Americans, or mostly Americans, and we have to take care of Americans.
The other way being take them off the ship.
Bring them off the ship.
That's the...
Now, they'll be under quarantine, and they'll be tested very carefully. Everyone is tested very carefully. Somebody said today, in fact, the governor said a story that a friend of yours, Governor Kemp, a friend of yours was saying how tough it is to get into the United States with all of the testing. Maybe you'd like to say.
Yeah, so John Zeldin, who's running the general manager of Atlanta International Hartsfield Airport, he's on our coronavirus task force here, and he did a great job yesterday in our press conference explaining the procedures that the president and others had put in place to make sure that everybody that's coming from northern Italy and South Korea being screened multiple times before they get on the airplane. I think that just gives people great confidence as they're traveling through all the airports across the country that the people that are coming in have been screened from those problem areas. Their customs and border people are checking them as well, having conversations. I think they may have tested one person at the Atlanta airport. They have over 300,000 people go through there a day. That test was negative, and so I mean it is safe to travel right now. People just need to be very careful, do the things that the CDC and Dr. Redfield and Secretary Azar and the Vice President and his task force are telling people to do, and that's keep your hands clean. Just be careful where you're going. If you're sick, don't go to the airport. Don't go.
But he was very impressed with how hard it is to get on the plane. He was tested 2 times, and then one person said 3 times just to come in. I mean, we're watching it very closely. The people are doing a good job, and instead of being negative, we should be positive. These scientists are doing a phenomenal job with something that came from out of nowhere a very short time ago.
I'm not trying to be negative, trying to help people understand when they can get the test. And I want to ask Secretary Azar, because he said most of them had shipped out. Can you tell me exactly how many people as of right now can be tested? You told me yesterday you thought it'd be 475,000. How many kits have been shipped, and how many people do you think can be tested by?
Well, you got the CDC director who's doing it.
Okay,
why don't we have Dr.
perfect.
Redfield talk to you? You may believe him. You won't believe me. Why don't you talk to Dr. Redfield? No.
It's all right.
We continue to send. Excuse me.
No,
I'll stand right here. We continue. Our first responsibility, CDC, as I said, was to develop the eyes, the lab test. Second responsibility was to get that out to the public health community. And we've now shipped out, I think it was enough to test 75,000 people into the public health labs now.
Anybody that wants a test can get a test. That's what
I would
the
just
bottom
say
line
that
is.
we started testing in our lab in Georgia, our Department of Public Health, yesterday, which is a day earlier than we thought it would be today. So we are actually testing today.
And the second group was to get, how do you get tests into the clinical arena? Since our role was to get in the public health arena. And the FDA, the secretary, under his leadership, was able to take the test that CDC developed, and one of the companies said they want to develop it and sell it. And that's what the secretary referred to. That
IDT.
Yeah, and by the end of this week, they were supposed to have about 1 million, 1.2 million tests out.
Yeah, 1 million tests. So they shipped 700,000 already. The remaining lots are actually being tested here. Dr. Monroe's got them as of, I think, 10:30 this morning, and they have to do the quality control, and then if they pass,
But
they
I
ship.
think importantly, anybody right now and yesterday, anybody that needs a test gets a test. They're there. They have the tests. And the tests are beautiful. Anybody that needs a test gets a test. If there's a doctor that wants to test, if there's somebody coming off a ship, like the big monster ship that's out there right now, which, again, that's a big decision. Do I want to bring all those people on? People would like me to do that. I don't like the idea of doing it. But anybody that needs a test can have a test. They're all set. They have them out there. In addition to that, they're making millions of more as we speak. But as of right now and yesterday, anybody that needs a test, that's the important thing. And the tests are all perfect. Like the letter was perfect. The transcription was perfect, right? This was not as perfect as that, but pretty good.
I want to add.
We're handling it from South Korea. We're testing that you can't come in from South Korea unless they go
But
through.
are they handling it better than we
I'd
are?
have to ask the doctors.
Before that, I just wanted to add one other thing to the availability of clinical tests. The Secretary, the Vice President, last week brought together all of the major diagnostic companies that you all know so well, LabCorp, Quest, and asked them to come together as a group. And they already formed a consortium to work together to use their capacity, which is really substantial, to bring this test to doctors' offices around our nation. And when they presented it, they felt that either by Monday, they're going to begin to roll out this test now through LabCorp, through Quest. So as the President said, the issue now is whether the clinicians believe that this test is indicated in evaluating the patients that come to see them. It's not going to be about the availability of the test. It's going to be about the clinical judgment of the patient and the doctor or the nurse practitioner to get this test.
Can I clarify about the
And this is, by the way, the highest level test.
Can I clarify
This is
quickly
the highest level test anywhere.
about the cruise ship? Has a decision been made?
It's a very good question.
And are you the final
From my
decider?
yes, from my standpoint, I want to rely on people. I have great experts, including our vice president, who's working 24 hours a day on this stuff. They would like to have the people come off. I'd rather have the people stay, but I'd go with them. I told them to make the final decision. I would rather, because I like the numbers being where they are. I don't need to have the numbers double because of one ship. That wasn't our fault. And it wasn't the fault of the people on the ship either. Okay? It wasn't their fault either. And they're mostly Americans. So I can live either way with it. I'd rather have them stay on, personally. But I fully understand if they want to take them off. I gave them the authority to make the decision.
Isn't that putting preference over not having more attractive numbers?
No,
or having
no, I'm saying whatever it is, that takes precedence over the numbers. No, I like the numbers. I would rather have the numbers stay where they are. But if they want to take them off, they'll take them off. But if that happens, all of a sudden your 240 is obviously going to be a much higher number, and probably the 11 will be a higher number too.
There must be some risk in leaving them on the ship, right?
There's probably risk to both. Probably risk to both. You know,
Is Is there going to be a way for us to advance our testing the way that South Korea has? They have the drive-through testing now.
We're working very closely with South
10,000
Korea.
people a day. Are we going to be
Well,
able to
we're
have that
working
kind of
closely with
capacity?
South Korea. They're also in a much different position. They have a lot of people that are infected. We don't. They're in a much different position. But we are working very closely with South Korea. As you know, we're allies, even though they've made much better trade deals in the past than we did. We're allies with South Korea. You have heard that, right? And we're working very closely with South Korea.
Yeah, I'm just.
And a lot of the
I'd like to
testing,
build back to their capability.
a lot of the testing is very similar testing, but they're in a much different position than they have thousands of people, and they're at a, they've got some difficulty right now. But we're working very closely. In fact, they're calling us, asking us and these people for advice.
And please correct me, doctors, if I'm wrong. If I understand correctly, South Korea is using a technology different than what we use in the United States in our public health labs, but that we do use in our commercial labs, the LabCorp, the Quests, the Roches, the Abbotts. And that's exactly what Dr. Redfoot was saying. We've been able to get up and running right away. Am I saying that correctly, Dr. Monroe?
Yeah, just one point of clarification. The South Koreans, I would call it, they're doing drive-through sample collection. So this is not like a pregnancy test where you drive through, they take a swab, and they tell you on the spot if it's positive or negative. They're using that as a way to collect samples from a large number of people, and then they're using the high-throughput testing platforms in order to do the testing.
And that testing platform is what you're saying is available through Quest, and so it will likely be available starting Monday, we think, when they're up and running.
And I think it's important just to emphasize, again, back to the role that CDC had to support the public health labs. We have built the laboratory capacity throughout our public health labs to monitor for flu and other respiratory viral systems. The platform that does that is the platform of the test that we developed. It wouldn't have helped us to develop a test for the public health labs, and they have none of the instrumentation. We developed using that platform for public health labs. The platform that the Secretary and Dr. Moreau is saying is a high throughput platform, which has been put in most hospitals for HIV, hepatitis C, and so that's the platform. And as we sit here today, we're trying to now validate whether the test we made would be validated to use that on that platform. But the private sector is already doing it too. I mean, they're moving now to that rapid throughput
And don't
platform.
forget, these are the people, like as an example, HIV, I talk about it in speeches and other things. HIV-free, or essentially free, within 9 years now. It's a 10-year process. These are the people that came up with the answers to this stuff that 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you would have said it's impossible. What they've done is incredible, and to others also. If you look at what they've done with HIV, it's incredible. Other countries are all calling the same people that you're dealing with. And honestly, what you should be doing is giving them a lot of credit, because this was a very condensed period of time. Even the vaccine, they're going to have tests done in 90 days that other people wouldn't have, that 2 years ago you were taking 2 years to do. And they're making great progress. It takes a period of time, but they're making great progress. Other countries are dealing with the same people you're talking to now, and others in this government universe. They're incredible people. And honestly, you should be giving them tremendous credit. They have done a tremendous job. When you mention South Korea, they're dealing with us all the time. When you mention Italy, they're dealing with us all the time. We're working together with China. We're working together with everybody. But these are great people. These are incredible people. And you shouldn't be knocking them. You should be praising them. They have done an incredible job already.
President, last night you said you had not anticipated this kind of thing happening. Do you think that having the Office of Pandemic Preparation in the White House that went on staff?
I just think this is something, Peter, that you can never really think is going to happen. You know, I've heard all about this could be, this could be a big deal from before it happened. Something like this could happen. I think we're doing a really good job in this country at keeping it down. We've really been very vigilant, and we've done a tremendous job at keeping it down. But who would have thought, look, how long ago is it? 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, who would have thought we'd even be having this subject? We were going to hit 30,000 in the Dow like it was clockwork, right? It was all going, it was right up, and then all of a sudden this came out. All I say is be calm. We have the greatest people in the world. Everyone's relying on us. The world is relying on us. They've done an incredible job in a very condensed period of time. The thing is, you never really know when something like this is going to strike and what it's going to be. This is different than something else. This is a very different thing than something else. So I think they've done a great job.
Would there be a value in
And you know
having
what? If I
White
didn't
House-
think they did, Peter, I'd tell you.
Would there be a value in having an office in the White House that's comparing?
Well, I just don't think that somebody is going to, without seeing something, like we saw something happening in China. As soon as they saw that happening, they essentially, not from the White House, I mean, you know, we don't need a lab in the White House, but they saw something happening. Found it very interesting. They spotted something going on in China. When you see these labs that I just saw, and I would love to have them see them if it's possible, but they spotted something going on in China. They started working on it immediately, just in case it should come here, and also to help China. I mean, if we could find something that's beneficial, we want to give it to China like they're going to want to give it to us. China's working very closely with us, South Korea, Italy, all of them. They're working very closely. But we're doing, you know, again, 240 and 11. That's where we are right now.
Mr. President, on the numbers, where are we now with the forecast? What sort of numbers are
We don't have a forecast because we don't know. We don't know how many people are, you know, have this, aren't going to see a doctor, aren't going to see a hospital. And the higher that number is, the better the number is from the standpoint of death, the death count. They get better without seeing doctors, without seeing hospitals. So nobody's marking it down. And I think the number is very high. I think that number is much higher, but it never gets reported because they're not going to hospitals or doctors. The ones that get reported are people that are really sick enough to go to a hospital or to a doctor. So it makes the numbers look worse.
How can hospitals be preparing for that?
Well, we're prepared for anything. We're prepared. We are really very highly prepared for anything. And in a short period of time, I mean, what they've done is very incredible. And I've seen what they've done back there. It's really incredible.
And just from a health perspective.
And by the way, NIH, what they've done, I spent time over there. And I like this stuff. You know, my uncle was a great person. He was at MIT. He taught at MIT for, I think, like a record number of years. He was a great super genius, Dr. John Trump. I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it. Every one of these doctors said, how do you know so much about this? Maybe I have a natural ability. Maybe I should have done that instead of running for president. But you know what? What they've done is very incredible. I understand that whole world. I love that world. I really do. I love that world. And they should be given tremendous credit. And the whole world is relying on us. You know, you hear about, like you're saying about South Korea. South Korea is very much reliant on the information we're giving them. And they're reliant on the vaccines that we will come up with. Very soon we're going to come up. Now, it takes a period of time to get them tested and then put into the market. It has to be very safe. You can't give a vaccine that's going to be unsafe. It would be a disaster. So that's where we are. And I think these people deserve, all of them, scientists, doctors, I think they deserve tremendous credit. I really do.
The Vice President went to the Seattle area yesterday.
He did.
With Governor Inslee.
Yeah.
He was very complimentary of Washington's response. The governor was a little less complimentary of your response.
So I told Mike not to be complimentary of the governor because that governor is a snake, okay? Inslee. And I said, if you're nice to him, he will take advantage. And I would have said no. Let me just tell you, we have a lot of problems with the governor. And the governor of Washington, that's where you have many of your problems, okay? So Mike may be happy with him, but I'm not, okay? And he would say that naturally. And as I said last night at the town hall, if we came up with a cure today and tomorrow everything is gone, and you went up to this governor, who's not a good governor, by the way, if you went up to this governor and you said to him, how did Trump do? He'd say he did a terrible job. It makes no difference. If we came up with a cure right now and tomorrow everything ended at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, everything ended, he would say Trump did a horrible job, okay? And I told Mike that would happen. I said, no matter how nice you are, he's no good. That's the way I feel. Goodbye. Good luck to CNN.
I have one quick question, just for the people who are watching who are concerned and have symptoms. Is it possible, or is it a good thing, or something that we're looking into, to be able to test people in mass like they're doing in other countries, so that they can just show up and get tested?
Well, they're not testing; they're sampling people in other countries.
Then they're testing.
No, excuse me. There's a difference. I heard what he said. They're sampling people. It's a drive-by. They give samples. Now, can we do that? Yeah, we can do that, but that's not effective like what we're doing. We're doing the whole thing in one stop. They're doing samples in South Korea. It's a very different thing. Go ahead. Would you like to say?
Well, I would just say, we're at a stage in our experience with this virus that we are still deeply focused on control. Some people use the word containment and control. And I said about the important principles of early diagnosis, isolation and contact tracing. And then now with some mitigation strategies, as you see in different areas when they're deciding should you close large gatherings. I think it's important to use the data and the science that we have. I mean, we're not blind to where this virus is right now in the United States. And we need to focus our resources right now where we know this virus is circulating substantially in the community, like certain parts of California, like certain parts of Seattle. That's where we need to put our focus. It would not be a service to our ability for our American response if all of a sudden 20 million Americans that have no evidence of any risk that we've looked in those areas really don't need that. That's why we are accelerating, as the President said, our surveillance. I mean, we're going out and really testing people that have flu-like symptoms and going to expand that from the sites we started to the whole nation. So we're going to have eyes on this and see, whoops, this virus has now snuck up into northern Maine. Whoops, we see it down in Kansas. And that information will then be used by doctors to know if someone comes in with an upper respiratory infection, I better think about maybe testing for a coronavirus. So really want to have the American people have confidence. It's not just in CDC. It's in the public health community of this nation. It's strong. They're doing their job. I tell people every time we see a new confirmed case, they should think of that as a success, not a failure, because they know their public health community is out doing their job.
So the difference is that they're being proactive. We are being proactive. We're going out and looking for spots. Nobody else is doing that, not by leaving samples or anything else. We're going out and proactively looking to see where there's a problem. We don't have to do that, but we're doing it to see if we can find areas which are trouble spots. I don't even know if I agree with that. You'll find out those areas just by sitting back and waiting. But they're trying to find out before you would normally find out by waiting. And, I think that's great, but that's what they're doing. We're the only country in that sense that's proactive. We're totally proactive, and we're totally equipped to handle it.
Is the strategy shifting from containment to risk mitigation?
So right now, it's you shouldn't think of it as one or the other. All right, and I'm going to say we need to stay committed to containment, and I still believe containment and control is the goal. But that's going to be complemented strategically by what we call mitigation or non-pharmaceutical interventions, like asking churches not to have big gatherings. So in the state of Washington, in the last couple of days, they announced their initial mitigation strategies. We've been working on mitigation for the whole nation, just in a planning way, but we've also have our people buried into the Washington Health Department, the California Health Department, to have them start to develop. And again, Washington started to operationalize theirs this week. I suspect California will later. We're going to continue to work on these, and it's going to be a community by community strategy. They're not all going to be the same, but it's going to be driven by the amount of community transmission that can't be linked to a contact, that can't be linked to a trip. When you see significant, what we call on-link transmission, then you start to have to evaluate the value. So it's not one versus the other, but this nation should not give up on containment.
South by
Okay?
Southwest.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us here at Golden State Times. If you found our coverage helpful, make sure you share it on social media and you give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and click that notification bell so you can get more updates on the coronavirus, President Trump at the CDC, and everything else in between in politics. Also, if you want to stay up to date on everything that is going on in politics, the coronavirus outbreak, and everything else, visit our website, www.goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's goldenstatetimes.com. full coverage of everything on that website. Thank you so much, folks, and we'll see you very soon. Peace.